Joining me today on GHC Coffee Break will be Angie Robinson. Get your coffee and we'll be right back.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to GHC Coffee Break. I'm really excited about our guest. She's been a guest before, but she's just so great. We have to keep bringing her back. And she has such a diverse knowledge base. Angie Robinson, and my friend, colleague, and former instructor at Georgia Highlands College with the Human Services Program. And Angie works with the public health and has been there how long?
16 years.
Wow, 16. Goodness. Time flies, doesn't it, when we're having fun? But there's a couple things we're going to talk about because April is not only, I think it's Public Health Awareness Month, but also Stress Awareness Month. And so we're going to kind of tie the two in together. So, Angie, I know you've got some great information to share, so I'm going to let you get started.
Okay, thank you. I think this is a good blend because what public health is about and then talking about stress awareness, work very easy together. So actually the first week of April is Public Health Awareness Week.
Okay.
Although we do celebrate the whole month, but specifically that week. And one of the things that public health is really looking at this year is kind of twofold. One, you look at, well, what has public health accomplished? And I think it's a time because a lot of folks, when they think about public health or the health departments, they may think of just one thing that public health does. Oh, that's where you go to get shots, or that's where you go to get
birth certificates.
Yes. So looking at the Centers for Disease Control actually put together the 10 greatest accomplishments by public health. So I was just going to review those because I think it makes us rethink what public health is about and then looking at where we're going and why public health is important and why it's celebrated. So the best accomplishments, one, we have actually decreased infant and maternal deaths. Those used to be very high complications from pregnancy and infants who died within the first year. So improvements in health and the screening, which, a lot of the screening is done at public health.
Right.
So we have made great improvements in the death rates in those areas. Immunizations, control of our contagious diseases.
And that's such one of those subjects that I see as positive, but of course you still have a lot of people that are fearful of the immunization.
Yes, but you think of what we've accomplished: eradicated polio.
That's pretty
Smallpox.
Huge. Yeah.
We're still having some issues with whooping cough, but measles, mumps, chickenpox, all of those things that have created problems. Of course, we're seeing some problems now from people not getting vaccinated.
Right.
But it just made a huge difference in our country
to
have vaccinations. Another thing that public health has been involved with vehicle safety is the decrease in the number of car crashes. Because public health works with Department of Transportation and Public Safety on education, with the seat belts. We do the car seats with the kids. Yeah. So there's been really a significant decrease in car crash deaths over the years. So that's been an accomplishment.
Absolutely.
Another great big one has been the smoke-free tobacco laws. that public health has worked with, and making smoke-free environments. People are much less exposed to secondhand smoke. So that's a big public health issue, and now working with tobacco-free school policies, which means that at any school event, it doesn't matter where it is, smoking's not allowed. So it's getting schools, and we do have, I think, almost half of the schools' systems in the state of Georgia have adopted the 100% smoke-free policy. And both of our school systems here in Roman Floyd County have adopted that.
And Georgia Highlands has too.
Yes. So, I mean, that's a big public health initiative along with other groups. So that's something. An old one that we forget about was fluoridation of the water to prevent cavities.
Yeah, I wouldn't have even thought of that.
It was part, again, a public health initiative to make that happen. We've had improved access to family planning services.
Now, yeah, that's the one I
and
a lot of times
improved contraception. Yes. So that has been a big part of public health. Another thing, a lot of people don't think that public health works with workplaces. So the reduction in workplace injuries has again been part of public health, working with unions and employers and government agencies to improve workplace environments. So again, it's public health, it's also public safety, because your safety affects your health.
And I think a lot of people don't think about the collaboration that public health has, how broad it is, and how many pots, I guess, they have their fingers in, which is a good thing.
Yes. And another very, very early thing that public health was involved with was just plain old sanitation and hygiene, the sewer systems, all of those things very, very early, when we realized how much that was affecting disease. So just control of those things. And then you think with that is safer foods, restaurant inspections.
Yes, and that's been on the news a little bit lately. It's like, I look at those. I actually look at those scores.
A lot of people do. That's probably one of the things that most people go to our website for, is to look at restaurant scores.
Oh, I did not know that y'all
You
did
can
that.
do the Northwest Georgia Public Health and get all of your local restaurant scores.
I did not know that, because when I go in, a lot of times I'll kind of look and just to see what it is. I don't think I've ever had to actually leave. However, I have eaten before and thought, what's that score? And go, oh shoot, maybe that's a little funny taste. It's probably not. It's probably my imagination is what it is. But because I know they are really strict, and I also know a lot of times the scores are something that's really not detrimentally health, but it's little things like, there was a little extra line of grit, just a little stuff.
Yeah.
But it's all makes up the score. My sister worked owned a little bitty hometown restaurant for a very short time, little soda shop basically. And she really, I learned a lot from her of just which is good, how picky, and you could leave a container open, and if that's when they happen to come in, that container open decreases the score. So there's a lot of things I think people don't realize that goes into that score.
Right, and part of the reason we do that is to prevent people from getting sick.
Exactly.
And when someone does get sick eating at a restaurant, again, a lot of people don't know, it's public health who goes in and investigates.
Oh, okay.
We have a whole epidemiology unit which investigates diseases.
Interesting.
So they have to track what food caused it, how did it get contaminated, and then doing the tracking of anyone who might have been impacted by, usually it's salmonella, but sometimes there can be some other bacteria that gets into the food.
Now, is that true with the grocery stores too, or just the restaurants?
Just the restaurants.
Okay.
That's another layer into the grocery stores, like when there's recalls.
Right.
Yeah. Public health is involved in that, but that's actually another government agency. I think it's the Food and Drug Administration that actually covers that.
Okay. I'm just curious.
But again, it's part of that kind of all working together for the health and well-being of our country.
And see, I think people forget how important collaboration is in things like this. I teach sociology, and a lot of things we take for granted in our country of the public health and the Food and Drug Administration in other countries are not necessarily quite as stringent.
Right.
And in one of the sociology textbooks, it talks about the author visits. I won't name the country, but they are actually, there's like animals on the street, and of course animals do what animals do. We won't go into detail, but people would order bread, and the vendor down here is throwing it up to the window. Well, it falls onto the ground, and he throws it up again, and you're like, ooh, that bread could just, never mind, I don't need bread that much. Or either I would go down and get the bread. But things that we take for granted. And I think the sanitation, if you look back at our history of how we've come, at least in the United States, from very negative sanitation to very positive sanitation.
Yes, yes. And a big part of what public health does is the education.
Absolutely.
Even your food safety at home. How do you store? Don't leave food out. So public health does a lot of those kinds of things. Again, it's about protecting the health of our community, our country. So the other accomplishment, and this kind of ties in with stress too.
Yeah, and that'll actually move us towards our next segment. Right. So good leadway.
Is we have had reductions in heart attack and stroke, but that is still a big issue in this country. But we're making progress. But it is very much related to stress. And so public health, as far as the heart attack and stroke issue, how are y'all involved in that? A lot of it is education, but it's also trying to encourage people to get regular checks. Because like for stroke, there's a couple of pieces there. One, know what your blood pressure is, because that's an indicator. The other thing is also to know the signs and symptoms of a stroke. There's when someone appears to be not quite there, it's asking a few questions. Can they say their name? Do they know where they are? Because getting people to the emergency room very, very quickly, because now there's new medications for stroke, but you have to get there within a certain time period. So it's educating the community to be aware of what the signs and symptoms of a stroke are. So again, it's getting that early intervention, but also keeping track of your blood pressure, making sure you're taking your medication. And we do talk about managing your stress.
Because stress has such a impact on our health.
It does. And in fact, and a lot of people don't realize this, a lot of people do know this, but the majority of our diseases and illnesses are stress related. In fact, doctors say 80 to 90%.
That's huge.
Yes, is stress related.
See, when you told me that, I had a very visceral reaction to that number, and some emotional reactions to it, and we'll talk about that when we come back. But we're going to have to take a break, get your coffee, and we'll be right back with GHC Coffee Break.
I'm transferring to the University of West Georgia.
Columbia University.
Kennesaw State.
UGA. Loyola University in Chicago.
Grambling State.
Shorter University. I'm going to Greensboro College, and we all got our start at Georgia Highlands.
No matter where your educational journey takes you, you can get your start at Georgia Highlands College. Georgia Highlands College. Enroll, engage, excel.
Welcome back to GHC Coffee Break. Angie, I'm really excited about the next segment. Of course, we kind of left us with stress. And those numbers when you shared with me were just phenomenal and nerve-wracking to me. I can remember, and I just want to put it like a cautionary tale to doctors and people out there in general. But in 1983, my son died, and for 3 weeks, I was severely sick, throwing up, horrific back pain. I mean, I think childbirth would have been easier. However, they kept saying, "Oh, you're stressed. You're upset." And of course, to me, that's a normal stress. Of course, if my son had just dying, I should feel depressed and stressed. But to take my whole everything that was the cause, and 3 weeks to the day of his death, I was taken back to the emergency room, and this had been going on off and on for 3 weeks. And finally, they said, my husband said, "You're not leaving until they find out what's going on." And at that point, it didn't matter how many Phenergan, and for those of you who don't know, Phenergan relaxes. It's a shot. It helps with nausea, and it relaxes everything. Well, when they were given it, what was happening is my gallstones, which were like the size of golf balls, by the time they finally got to me, at some point, they would not pass. I don't care how relaxed everything was. It wasn't going anywhere. And it got stuck, and they realized and did an ultrasound and said, "Oh, okay." And I had a gallbladder the size of a Coke can and gallstones, just huge gallstones. A surgery that should have taken 45 minutes took 3 hours. So while I acknowledge and appreciate your numbers of 80 to 90%, and we'll definitely talk about that, I just wanted to put a little catalyst that also there are very physical illnesses that you need to make sure that you don't just say, "Oh, I'm just stressed."
And I think that's a very, very good point, because we said 80 to 90% caused by it. That means 10 to 20% is not.
Exactly. And unfortunately, I fell into that 20%.
Right. But, and let me explain what happens that stress causes illness. Stress, when you are stressed, and let's talk about normal stress and I guess crisis stress, so to speak. Stress is something that's a part of life every day.
Sure.
Because
in the car.
Yes. I mean, stress is basically dealing with changes. Well, things change, things happen every single day, at work, at home, at school, wherever it is. So we have just our normal stress. We deal with it. It's dealing with normal stress, or the changes, let me say, is basic problem solving. Just, okay, this happened. This is what I need to do to take care of it. Our crisis stress is when something much more major occurs, and it has a much stronger reaction. Well, what happens is our body will release the hormone cortisol. And so if we're staying under that stress for a long period of time, we're releasing a lot of cortisol. Cortisol damages our organs.
And that's the one that holds in the belly, right?
Yes. But it can spread all over the body, depending upon, how long it's being released. And also what that does is it weakens your immune system. So therefore, people who are under that just really crisis stress for long periods of time are more likely to become ill, because their immune system is not functioning normally. So they can catch a virus. It can work on their heart, their blood pressure. I mean, there are so many parts of the body, because all of us are different and we feel stress. Everyone feels stress stronger in different parts of our body.
Yes, because I can feel it a lot of times in my neck.
So long periods, and that's really where the disease comes in, is long periods of stress over a long period of time, and not being able to manage what is happening.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of those things that's really important when we look at how stress not only affects us emotionally, but the physicality of it. And like I said, I get a lot of that tension and stress in my shoulders. I'm a stress eater. I know people that are stressed that they don't eat.
Right.
And so I think it's really important not only to look at how stress affects us, but what we can do about it.
Exactly. And I think that's the key. No matter what the stress is, even major stress, it's learning to deal with it. It's what can I do? Because if you know your stomach is hurting because you're stressed, or you're feeling a lot of tension up here, it's like that should be your signal. Oh, I need to do something.
Right.
To relieve it. So you have both, and I'd like to talk about both. You have some mental things you can do, and then also some physical. And I think it's important that you do a combination of the two, because everything works together. A lot of people will do physical exercise. Okay, that relieves it for the moment, but if you haven't taken care of how you're mentally processing the stress, it comes right back.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's really looking at both sides of it. That first, look mentally, what can I do? Because again, it's change. So how can I solve this problem? And sometimes that can be tricky, because sometimes the solution is not simple. I mean, we're sick. I don't want to be sick. Well, we can't necessarily solve that.
Right.
But there are things we can do to make it better. So sometimes we really have to look at, well, what is the solution? What is that I actually can control? And that's a big issue with stress, is trying to control things we don't have control over.
Okay.
Because we want to fix this person over here, or I'm getting stressed because I can't fix that person over there. Well, no, you can't. And as long as you keep thinking you can, you're going to stay stressed. Because there's only two things we can control in our life: what we think and how we behave.
Well, that's true.
That's the only thing we have control over. To me, that is a huge stress management skill. Because once you understand that, it makes it easier to then manage the stress. Because then you can look at, what can I do? How can I deal with this situation? So that's part of it. That's not always an easy part, and sometimes you may need to talk to somebody to help you think through the problem solving. But then the other side is you do have to get the stress out of your body. So exercise is good. Hot baths, just doing something relaxing, meditation. For some people, it's journaling.
Yeah, I love to journal.
Yes. And that gets a lot of things out. And again, that helps with the mental, but it also helps relax the body at the same time. So you're wanting to do things that can work both the mind and the body to relax. And another big piece, I do laughter yoga, which is a stress reliever. But part of what that does is learning to look at the lighter side of life. Sometimes we do take things too seriously, and we have to look at the lighter side. Laughter and humor therapy even helps people look at the more positive side, and it creates a more positive attitude that makes it easier to deal with the stress, because you're able to look at more positive solutions. And that's kind of, this whole stress management is under, like I said, the awareness of it is looking at how it affects you both mentally and physically, and then getting your control back. Because that's what it's about. We feel out of control when we're stressed. And what you want to do is feel back in control, because then your body will regulate itself. The cortisol will quit being released. And that's what you don't want. You want the good hormones to be released. The cortisol is not a good hormone over a long period of time. That's what creates the damage and puts you more at risk for heart disease, stroke. They even say, I mean, it can trigger your cancer cells.
Yeah, I've heard that. And I know one of the things, I think immune systems, colds.
Oh, yes. You're just more likely to get a virus or a bacteria because your immune system is compromised.
And, you know, I hate taking medicines. I hate taking pills. So if I could come up with very physical things or mental exercises to do, to me that's a lot better, even though I do believe in there's a lot of natural herbs and stuff to help with the things we're talking about. That's a whole nother show. but I'm thinking of more the physicality. I do believe laughter also triggers some endorphins or something, I believe.
It does.
Some chemical reactions to us.
It does. It actually releases your happy chemicals, your serotonin, that makes you feel good. And again, and part of that feeling good, then that's that positive attitude, which again helps you look at the solutions easier. So it creates that more positive, and it's almost kind of like gives you a more optimistic outview rather than a pessimistic. And that's something people need to look at. If you're always looking at things negatively, you tend to be under more stress because that's not a happy feeling.
I don't find it. Yet I have found people, unfortunately, in my life that seem not to be happy unless they're miserable, or not to be happy unless they're making someone else miserable. And it concerns me that, unfortunately, in our nature sometimes is this, I guess, misery loves company kind of idea, which is not what I like at all. I'm usually a very upbeat person. I know when you came in today, I was like, oh, okay, I really need this, because there's a lot of different stresses that have been coming in lately. And so, yeah, I think it's really important. And I do like self-talk. Sometimes I'm successful at it. Other times I'm not, because the other little, that agitation keeps coming in and pestering. But I think that it's important to laugh.
Yes.
And I still want to do some laughter yoga at some time with you again, because I've experienced it, and it's really, to me, it was a positive experience. I like regular yoga, so to put laughter with it and to really have that difference. Unfortunately, we're about out of time. We're going to take a quick break. Eat your coffee. We'll be right back with GHC Coffee Break.
Hi, may I please have an application? Thank you.
Skip the drama. Get your diploma.
Okay.
Take that first step towards a better future. Find free adult education classes at finishyourdiploma.org.
All right. I hope you have your coffee, but you might want to put it down. Angie, you're going to laugh us out of here. We have about 25 seconds. We're going to get stress-free. Give us a little bit of example of laughter yoga, real quick.
Good one. We're going to do mental floss. We're going to clear out. So get your floss, stick it through your ear, pull it out.